remembering a Baltimore legend.
Brooks Robinson meant so much and still does to this whole town.
Tremendous person.
He was a legend, he was a hero, he was an idol.
This came to say goodbye to Brooks.
But first, a local tech CEO murdered. Our team digs deeper into the history of the suspect accused in the killing.
I want people to ponder, when are you going to get tired of this?
And we examine how Baltimore's cycle of violence continues to claim innocent lives.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
A manhunt is underway right now in Baltimore for 32-year-old Jason Billingsley. City police say he brutally killed a 26-year-old tech CEO in her apartment near downtown Monday evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Here is the very latest. Police believe Billingsley might still be in the greater Baltimore area. Fox 45 News has learned he is a registered sex offender who was released from prison on mandatory supervision in October of last year. Police also telling us he's now being tied to an arson, attempted murder, and rape in West Baltimore. BPD warning the public Billingsley should be considered armed and dangerous.
This individual will kill and he will rape. He will do anything he can to cause harm. So please be aware of your surroundings.
We have live team coverage. Mackenzie Frost and Amy Simpson are digging into how repeat offenders are fueling crime in Baltimore. Plus, what is and isn't being done about it.
Let's begin, though, with Alexa Ashwell with the latest on the search for Billingsley and a deeper look into his background. Alexa?
Yes, Kai, Mary, just within the past hour, Baltimore Police and Metro Crime Stoppers announcing this $6,000 reward for information regarding the whereabouts of Jason Billingsley. As you mentioned, BPD also confirming what sources told me that Billingsley is also connected to an attempted murder, rape, and arson case that occurred prior to LePaire's murder, leaving more questions.
The manhunt for convicted felon Jason Billingsley, accused of murdering Baltimore tech CEO Pava LePaire, intensifying. Overnight, federal, state, and local police scouring several locations, including neighborhoods in greater Baltimore. Agents now broadening their search as sources confirm Billingsley is believed to be connected to other violent and recent crimes and has a total of at least 3 warrants for his arrest: LePaire's murder, a gun theft, and a rape arson investigation.
This individual will kill and he will rape.
During yesterday's press conference, acting Baltimore Police Commissioner Richard Worley was questioned if Billingsley is connected to other cases, specifically an incident on Edmondson Avenue in West Baltimore.
We're still looking into that case, but he is a suspect in at least one other case.
That initial report listed as an arson investigation, but sources confirming more alarming details and Billingsley the believed suspect. According to police, on September 19th, about a week before LePaire's murder, officers responded to reports of a house fire here on Edmondson Avenue. Inside, they found a man and a woman with critical injuries. Sources confirmed the woman reported she had been attacked and raped by a man before he cut their throats and set fire to the home. Miraculously, both victims survived. Neighbors say they heard about the reported rape by word of mouth.
People that we know, we would hear them talk about it, or people in the area, we would hear them talk about it. But us personally, we don't know nothing much about it. But I can say that I'm very appalled.
Also appalling to many, including Mayor Brandon Scott, the fact that Billingsley was out on the streets given his criminal past.
There is no way in hell that he should have been on the street.
Newly obtained court documents providing further insight. In 2009, when Billingsley was 18 years old, he was arrested for assaulting and stealing money from a man. The majority of his 5-year sentence was suspended, and Billingsley received 2 years probation. Court records show he violated that probation in 2011 by committing another assault, this one on a former girlfriend. Billingsley was sentenced to 2 years, a judge allowing him to serve this time concurrently, meaning with his sentence for the probation violation. Then in 2013, Billingsley arrested again, this time for a first-degree sex offense. Court records show he forced a woman to perform oral sex after the two met and strangled and threatened her throughout the incident. A judge sentenced Billingsley to 30 years in prison, suspending all but 14 of those years and ordering the felon serve 5 years probation, submit his DNA, and register as a sex offender upon his release. That release happening 5 years early in October 2022. A reported rape and LePaire's murder happening less than a year later.
Now, regarding this attempted murder, arson, and rape case, that's all one case, we questioned police why they didn't notify the department, the public, I should say, about this rape. And since they've confirmed his connection, we're asking why his picture wasn't put out sooner. We'll let you know the response we receive. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, you brought it up. How can someone under the watch of the justice system slip through the cracks to allegedly commit another crime? Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our live team coverage looking at the legislative opportunities to address repeat violent offenders. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Mary, we know that this opportunity has come up time and time again. There has been legislation introduced year after year, and each time both chambers failed to make the repeat violent offenders plan a reality. There was a bill called the Violent Firearms Offender Act that called to implement tougher penalties for repeat offenders who use guns in their crimes, and again, it failed to become a reality. Now this issue is back in the spotlight given the lengthy history that we're learning of this suspect that we're talking about right now, Jason Billingsley. And earlier we know that we talked to Senate President Bill Ferguson back in 2022, and I pressed him about when this plan would be brought up for a vote. He said it would not be done unless the House moved on it, since the plan itself passed the Senate a few years in a row. That never happened, and it's something that the former Governor Larry Hogan, who made this a priority, says that that was one of his biggest frustrations.
We had legislation that we thought was critically important, and every single year, all of the city leaders and all of the city legislators killed those bills. That's my biggest frustration of being governor, that we couldn't get that fixed. But it wasn't for a lack of trying, it was for a lack of cooperation.
And there was another bill that was brought up time and time again, the Judicial Transparency Act. It would have produced a report card for judges of sorts, allowing the public to track the sentences and plea deals offered and given by the judges by the specific judge's name. Now, that plan did become a reality. It did become law, but it wasn't as planned. In fact, that information was produced without the judges' names attached to the sentences and plea deals that have been given. Now, we also sent questions to the Baltimore City delegation in Annapolis today, questioning them about what they're going to do about the repeat violent offenders, and we'll talk about that coming up at 5. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. In Baltimore, seemingly innocent bystanders have become victims of violent crime. Fox 45's Amy Simpson is live right now and examines how often these tragedies occur. Amy joins us with more. Amy?
Yeah, Kai, all too often people who call this city home are just going about their lives and find themselves victims of violence here in Baltimore City. Here are just a few examples. Back in November of 2021, 69-year-old Evelyn Player was murdered inside of an East Baltimore church. Her killer, a repeat violent offender. January 2022, 51-year-old Cheryl McCormick shot and killed while delivering food in Northeast Baltimore. That same month, restaurant manager Chesley Patterson gunned down in Fells Point. In April of this year, 23-year-old Fabian Gonzalez shot and killed after an armed robbery at Canton's T-Mobile. And this week, 26-year-old Pava LePere found dead at her apartment building. All 5 of these victims likely strangers to one another, but linked in tragedy. All of them seemingly innocent, random victims of crime in Baltimore City.
Most people are just trying to live their lives, and they want to do so in a safe and free manner. We pride ourselves on freedoms here in the United States of America. Some of those freedoms began in the city of Baltimore, but people who don't feel safe aren't free.
So, Amy, this story has been making headlines across the globe. What does this mean for Baltimore on the national, if not international stage?
Yeah, you just heard from her there, Kai. Sergeant Betsy Smith is the spokeswoman for the National Police Association, and I asked her about this today. Take a listen.
It's a city that I always love to visit. It's historic. It's picturesque. But now nationally, what are people hearing about Baltimore, Maryland? That it's a violent city that cannot seem to get a handle on its murder problem, on its violent crime problem.
And in speaking with Sergeant Smith today with the National Police Association, she pointed out yet another example of a seemingly unprovoked killing here in the city. It was December of 2021 when Baltimore police officer Kiana Holly was shot in an ambush-style attack on her patrol car in Curtis Bay. Officer Holly died a week later. We're live in Baltimore. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. We have more coverage in our next half hour. At 4:30, we'll be live in Mount Vernon as the community comes together for a vigil for Papa LaPere. We'll also speak with a political analyst on what we heard from Mayor Scott yesterday about repeat violent offenders, and the Baltimore City Council meets again on crime. We'll tell you what was said today about July's mass shooting in South Baltimore.
And making headlines, Baltimore police are looking for an arson suspect in a string of fires in northwest Baltimore. This video is from earlier this month. Police say they believe the suspect is behind multiple fires in the Falstaff neighborhood. You are asked to call BPD with any information. Well, Baltimore, as we know, has lost a legend. Hall of Famer Brooks Robinson passed away yesterday. He was 86 years old.
Let's take you live to Camden Yards right now. That news coming just a few hours before the Orioles played the Nationals yesterday. And today, they'll seek to clinch their first AL East title in 9 years.
And Robinson is no doubt one of the greatest Orioles of all time, the best third baseman to ever play the game, full stop. Robinson came to the Orioles from Little Rock, Arkansas in 1955 when he was 18. He played all 23 years with the Orioles before retiring after the 1977 season. Fans today flocking to Camden Yards to remember his legacy.
My eyes keep leaking and I can't stop it. So when I found out they were going to open the statue this morning, I told my wife, I got to go. She goes, "You don't get up early." I said, "I'm getting up early today."
Well, coming up at 4:30, Rebecca Pryor will join us live from Camden Yards as fans remember the legacy of Brooks Robinson.
Groups of masked teenagers looting businesses across Philadelphia overnight. The arrest this afternoon.
Donald Trump continues to skip debates, including tonight's, but still has a huge lead over his Republican contenders. What does it mean, and what do they have to do next? I'm Scott Thuman with a debate preview coming up.
And for the first time in 3 years, student loan repayments are resuming. The date you need to keep in mind.
And yes, finally, what's that brightness in the sky? Sunshine. It's back if you're going out to dinner or to the O's game. Hopefully they'll clinch the AL East tonight. We've got 67 at 6 and dropping down into the upper 50s by 10. Easy commuting here. I'm going to let you know when the clouds and some rain are going to be back, and it's sooner than you'd like. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
We are back with the Fox 45 Quad Box. The U.S. soldier who crossed into North Korea 2 months ago is in American custody. Earlier today, North Korea said that they would expel Private Travis King. He's expected to arrive in an Army medical facility in Texas later tonight.
Large groups of masked teenagers looted a number of stores overnight across Philadelphia. Right now, at least 20 people are in custody. Earlier in the day, there was a protest after charges were dismissed against an officer for shooting and killing a driver. Police say these looters had nothing to do with that protest.
New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez and his wife are arraigned today for their roles in an alleged bribery scheme. Federal prosecutors say the senator used his position on the Foreign Relations panel to advance business dealings in exchange for money and luxury cars. Menendez entered a plea of not guilty.
Las Vegas hospitality workers have voted to authorize a strike. Leaders are still negotiating with gaming companies on pay, benefits, and working conditions. A walkout could impact more than 36 casinos and hotels along the Las Vegas Strip.
Tonight, 7 Republican presidential hopefuls will meet for the second GOP debate.
The frontrunner, Donald Trump, will not be on stage, though.
We're joined by Sinclair chief political correspondent Scott Thuman. Scott, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mary and Kai. You know, these debates have always been the center of so much anticipation, drawn so much attention and focus, and that clearly has been dampened a bit by Donald Trump not attending, choosing again to be elsewhere. He'll be in Michigan courting voters there. And that means it's up to the 7 who did qualify to make the stage tonight to try and take advantage of that. For the Republican Party, another debate, another no-show by Donald Trump, the clear frontrunner, making it known he can dominate the competition without facing them in person, leaving the 7 who made it on stage and others in the wings wondering what else they can do. In early states, Trump is up 30 points in Iowa and 37 in New Hampshire, and 58% of GOP voters in both states say Trump could definitely beat Biden.
We're leading by a lot against probably the worst president, definitely the worst president, I'd say.
So are the debates now less significant?
No, I think the debates are an important time for us as a Republican Party to share that contrasting vision for America, to share the ideas that we have, the policies that we believe in as Republicans. If he decides to come to future debates, that would be wonderful.
In the meantime, the economy expected to be a major theme, and candidates usually at odds will have plenty in common, bashing Bidenomics and America's finances under the current president. Consumer confidence dropping to a 4-month low in September as groceries and gas prices continue to hurt. Yet none of those who are debating seeming to find the bounce they need. Republicans' runner-up, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, has seen his numbers drop since the last debate, prompting more chatter in donor circles about a possible new contender, like Virginia's Governor Glenn Youngkin. So a breakout performance tonight, critical.
It's, I think, in my opinion, less about speaking time and more about speaking substance. Debates, they're important, but they're a moment in time. They don't define a campaign. It's important to be able to be built for the long haul.
Another sign that Trump is still the main draw for both viewers and Republicans. Fox has reportedly cut the advertising costs for a commercial to just over half of what they were charging last month during the first debate. Mary and Kai, back to you.
Scott Thuman reporting live for us from D.C. Thank you. Well, let's get a check of our forecast right now. You're looking at live pictures around our region as we see, yes, gentlemen, ladies out there, the return of sunshine.
Great balls of fire, as we like to call it.
Exactly.
Literally.
Enjoy the break from this dreary weather. Yes, thank goodness.
We all needed it,
wow.
for sure.
It makes a big difference.
I'll tell you, I have my windows open coming to work.
Yes.
It just makes a whole difference in kind of your demeanor, you know, especially with the O's playing
Yes,
tonight.
like actually wanting to put clothes on and go to work.
That's
yeah,
right.
that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff. All right, well, let's get right into the forecast. I mean, we are enjoying, finally, a respite from just days of clouds. Remember, Ophelia coming through and all the rain and the wind and then the days of drizzle. Yesterday, 63 for high. We've already blown that away. But, excuse me, HD radar does show that those Ophelia remnants are still around. They're down south toward Jacksonville as well as Wilmington in North Carolina, just offshore there, and even some drizzle pulling back not too far from Virginia Beach. But again, around the circulation here, our whole weather pattern's been based on this thing for days. we're seeing winds coming in out of the northeast, and the source of that is some dry and cool air that's toward north and east. So that's why, at least today, that's what's going on. We got the sunshine back. But notice this system closing in from the west. Yes, there is another weather maker, and it is coming just in time for tomorrow with some clouds, maybe a shower late, and could be a little bit showery at the end of the week, and maybe even the first of the weekend could have some clouds and a shower. But then I think you're going to like the forecast if you like warm weather. Right now, sun's back, but it's still cool for this time of year, about 10 degrees below average, 68. Winds out of the east at 10 miles an hour here in Baltimore. Beautiful look at the Toyota Asian Harbor Skycam in the background. Of course, that's Camden Yards, and that's going to be a busy place. 6:35 tonight. Those easterly winds, again, keeping us relatively cool, but with the sunshine, at least for now. Humidity, 49%. Temperatures all across the board are in the mid to upper 60s, even a couple of low 70s, like here at Westminster as well as at Frederick, 72 degrees. Now this is a sight for sore eyes. 24-hour temperature change 5 to 10, even almost 15 degrees warmer with that sunshine this afternoon. There are the leftovers of Ophelia down to the south. Again, our next weather maker out to the west. This is going to be the kicker to kind of really shift our pattern. Dries out behind that, and in fact, for us, it's really going to warm up too as we head on into the second half of the weekend next week. Now out in the tropics, Philippe, it looks like this one is going to be going off to the west and eventually just becoming a tropical depression right around Puerto Rico. And then there's a high chance of development still that's out in the central Atlantic. That's going to move north and northwest, something to watch over the next several days. Looks like eventually it ends up at least in the open Atlantic. We'll have to see where it eventually goes from there. Still a little too early to tell. But around here, again, we're going to stay with some mainly clear skies through the evening. So looking great for the O's game, a lot better than what we saw yesterday with a drizzle and the clouds. Now into the overnight hours, notice the clouds do pick up once again from the south initially, and then some showers also potentially as we head into the second half of tomorrow. High temperatures probably back in the 60s, and then there are those on and off showers potentially for Friday as well, with high temperatures nearing 70 degrees. And it looks like we could be in the lower 70s by Saturday. Stray leftover shower, and then we leave this behind. Look at this. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. How about highs near 80, even into the 80s by Monday, Tuesday, and dry skies with sun. So certainly getting some payback for this gloomy pattern that we've had.
Jonathan, thank you. Remembering number 5, straight ahead, we take you live to Camden Yards as Baltimore remembers the legacy of Brooks Robinson.
I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. Student loan payments are set to restart, the impact to individual households and also the economy.
Student loan repayments are starting back up in just a few days, and that could have a ripple effect on the economy. The National Desk's Angela Brown explains.
Credit monitoring companies say the average student loan payment is between $200 and $300, money that's going to the federal government that could be pulled out of the economy. Student loan payments restarting, borrowers jump-starting balancing their budgets, like Ashley Allen in Oregon.
I definitely will still be paying on them for quite a while.
The Wall Street Journal reporting restarting student loan payments could divert up to $100 billion from Americans' pockets over the coming year. Financial experts warning.
This is a net negative for the U.S. consumer. This is not a good thing that these payments are going to resume.
Money no longer going to buying merchandise, dining out, or even basic needs.
You also hear simultaneously retailers, including Target, the other kinds of places like that have a significant base of their consumer with student loan debt. In earnings calls, even over the past quarter, we heard that they are worried themselves about what this could mean for their sales.
But Bankrate analyst Sarah Foster says households, not the economy overall, will feel the biggest pinch.
That $200 to $300 a month that households were spending on average each month putting towards their student loan payments. That is a lofty bite out of their budget when they're simultaneously dealing with higher interest rates, high inflation.
If you have student loans to pay off, experts recommend that you check out the income-driven repayment plans, including the president's new plan called SAVE. For more on the discussion on student loan repayments, just go to my TikTok page, Angela Gets Answers. Reporting in Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Well, coming up as the search for the suspect continues in the murder of Pavel Lapierre, what friends and loved ones are doing to remember the young victim. I'm Keith Daniels, live with that report.
The Public Safety Committee met here for the third time today, demanding accountability after the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. I'm Maxine Stryker. Coming up, the new details that came to light.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
It is 4:30, and we're following three big stories right now. Baltimore and baseball fans are remembering Hall of Famer Brooks Robinson. The legend passed away yesterday at the age of 86. Rebecca Pryor standing by live at Camden Yards as people honor the legacy of number 5.
The emotional testimony of a mother who lost her daughter in July's mass shooting in South Baltimore halts a council hearing. Today, lawmakers are questioning city agencies on failures leading up to the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. Maxine Stryker is also standing by live with what was said.
But first, the search for the man police say killed the young CEO of a Baltimore tech company continues as the community is coming together to honor Pavel Lapierre.
To have that life cut short by someone who has no care about anything other than harming people is something that should sit deep in the stomachs of all Baltimoreans tonight.
Let's begin live with Keith Daniels.
Keith, the community is coming together in Mount Vernon to remember Pavel Lapierre. What's happening there right now?
Well, Kyle, I can tell you they described her as a kind, talented businesswoman. Mayor Brandon Scott said that he got to know her over the years and called her a devoted Baltimorean. And tonight, her friends and loved ones will be here, are expected to gather here at the Washington Monument in Mount Vernon. You may see some of the flowers and some people here now for a vigil in her memory. Now, police found Lapierre's body at her apartment building on West Franklin Street near downtown Baltimore late Monday morning with signs of blunt force trauma. The medical examiner's office has not released the cause of death. Police found her body within hours after she was reported missing. The search is on now for Jason Billingsley, accused in Lapierre's killing. Investigators are releasing few details about the case, including how police identified Billingsley as a suspect. Now, Lapierre was the founder and CEO of EcoMap, an online resource for companies to, among other things, find investors. Friends call her death truly disturbing.
She was determined. She was passionate. She was a force. And one of those folks, when she was in a room, you knew she was in the room, but not in a way in which she was belittling anybody or making it seem like she was above people. She was kind. She was compassionate.
Now we are back here live. Now, Metro Crime Stoppers now offering a $6,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest of Billingsley. Meantime, this vigil is set to begin here at 6:30. We're live now in Mount Vernon. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
When the police go out and do their job as they did in this case, right, with this individual, I won't even give him the pleasure of calling him a man, with this individual, and then the state's attorney goes out, does their work, gets the conviction should be the conviction. And look at who made a decision to allow this person to go out on parole based on the facts of those cases from the past.
Well, strong words from the mayor, Brandon Scott, possibly the most forceful we've heard from him regarding repeat violent offenders during his tenure as mayor.
Let's bring in political analyst John Deedy right now. John, Mayor Scott has been talking about what happened yesterday. What are your thoughts about what you heard from him?
I think the tone that he expressed, along with the acting police chief, was pitch perfect. This is a tragedy, and it reminds, I think of a quote Bill Clinton said many years ago, and he said this, he said, "We have more yesterdays than tomorrow." This young woman had more tomorrows than yesterdays. She was going to be a leader in our community. And when you have a young life like this with so much promise, someone who appears to be close to the mayor, it becomes a tragedy for the entire city.
And John, sometimes these things do become somewhat political. We've seen the mayor and the police commissioner taking this strong stance in the national media ever since the press conference last night. Will this make a difference to voters in the upcoming mayoral race? Because as we know, voters watch local and national news.
I think that depending how this plays out, as far as if there is a quick arrest, I think what could help the mayor in some ways is when we finally get to an accountability of what happened here, because this clearly happened under the direction of former state's attorney Marilyn Mosby when all this went on. And I think the questions that need to be asked is, How the hell did this plea deal come into play for someone who was a repeat offender, who was sentenced to 30 years in jail, 14 suspended, and got out after 7? And I think that's what really irritates a lot of people and frustrates a lot of people about the criminal justice system.
So, John, where do you think things will stand as we move forward? The new city state's attorney, Ivan Bates, has said he is going to be tougher on crime than his predecessor. And so if, for instance, the state's attorney's office gets a conviction, let's say they, of course, find this gentleman and he's convicted of this crime, there's still the sentencing component, and that resides with judges. And that is another conversation that needs to be discussed, correct?
Correct. And that's one of the problems. I really feel that part of the problem is there was a lack of communication involved between the state's attorney's office and the judges. I had read an article today by Justin Fenton, and he said one of the problems was that the witness involved in this case was reluctant to testify. So the plea deal became this type of plea deal where maybe if she had testified without fear of maybe retribution, maybe there would have been a much longer sentence and he still would have been behind bars. This, Luke Kleppinger is doing these hearings as far as a variety of things related to criminal justice. Maybe he needs to put this on his plate too in November.
All right, political analyst John Deedy. John, thank you.
You're welcome.
Trust Fox 45 News to follow this manhunt closely. We'll have the latest developments right here on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
I know you said we're guests of honor. This is no honor. Knowing that Foxtrot will tell you as they look down from hundreds of feet in the air that everything looks normal. What's your normal? I challenge you, what is your normal? Let them take each other out. Is that your normal?
That was the emotional testimony from the mother of Aaliyah Gonzalez, one of 2 young people killed in the Brooklyn Day mass shooting in July.
And those words, so painful to her, cut the public safety hearing on the shooting short 2 weeks ago, as many were brought to tears.
And that hearing reconvened today for council members to grill police, Monzi, and the Housing Authority about what went wrong on that day. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker was there and joins us live from City Hall. Maxine?
Hi, and Mary, this was now the 3rd hearing here at City Hall, and a big focus today was on Safe Streets, whose role in the Brooklyn Day mass shooting has been called into question really since it happened in early July. Interim Executive Director for Monzi, Stephanie Mavronis, presented the council with the agency's after-action report findings today, pointing to a timeline of when workers were there and answering questions about why they left, despite knowing how large the crowd was and the lack of police presence. According to Mavronis, between 8 and 10:30, violence interrupters mediated 5 conflicts, but they left between 11 and 12:20 that night, just 10 minutes before those first shots were fired.
Their finding was that there are only informal practices regarding when and how Safe Street staff share knowledge with Monzi community violence intervention staff about large events or potentially emerging threats to public safety in their catchment zones.
So they are now working on coming up with a formal policy of when Safe Streets workers should escalate potential threats to Monzi. Meanwhile, several council members had a lot of questions for Monzi about why Safe Streets left that night.
I do think that it is fair for the public to have questions. In these types of incidents, when Safe Streets are present and something catastrophic happens, I think it is fair for folks to ask what went on that led to this incident. I think one of the things that it can and should do is be the credible messengers that raise the alarm bells and say, like, this is not going well. And again, I get that that can't be always calling 911, but I do think that there is a role for those workers in raising the alarm, because clearly this thing escalated, and it escalated over a period of time.
We are taking this as an opportunity to look really closely about what's documented and what's not, and as an area of improvement. We would have hoped that we received a call sooner, and once we heard about the incident, we were able to proactively reach out. But we talked about how the work that police do is a judgment call. This is human work too, and so there are some judgment calls that relate to that.
Mavrona says the nature of the mediations that night never indicated that things would escalate to the level that they did, pointing out that Safe Streets workers are not police officers. They don't carry guns. They work mainly off of their credibility, which is something that is still being called into question since this shooting. Reporting live from City Hall, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 tries to get answers from Baltimore City schools after a recent investigation found 13 city high schools where 0 students who took the state math exam scored proficient.
And that investigation went viral, making national headlines. But when our Project Baltimore team went to city school board meeting last night, the school system made it clear they did not want to talk, refusing to allow our cameras to record outside the meeting.
And where you can run the camera is inside the boardroom.
Or outside.
Or inside.
I mean, is this a new rule? It is not. It's not a new. It's just never been enforced. I guess it's never been enforced.
Project Baltimore obtained the unredacted state test scores from this past spring. At 13 city high schools, more than 1,700 students took the state math test and 0 scored proficient. At the top 5 performing high schools in the city, just 11% of students who took the test scored proficient in math. And during the board meeting, City School CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises defended the school system, saying some of the students at the top 5 city high schools were not included in the results because they took the test before high school.
Despite what some media outlets would have you believe, we are making progress. In fact, many of the students at the 5 high schools referenced in a recent news story, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, Baltimore School for the Arts, Baltimore City College, Western High School, and Bard High School Early College Baltimore, had already passed the Algebra MCAT test before entering those schools.
Now, Dr. Santelises did not explain how many students took the test before entering those schools, and that's not the only question she left unanswered. Coming up tonight at 10, the drastic steps Project Baltimore took during last night's meeting to get answers for the public.
The Baltimore Orioles are back at Camden Yards tonight for their second game against the Nationals. The O's defeated Washington yesterday to bring their magic number down to 2. There are 5 games left for the O's to clinch their first AL East title since 2014. Now, that title could come tonight if the O's win and Tampa Bay loses at Boston. Incredibly sad news delivered less than an hour before the first pitch yesterday.
That's right. Word of the passing of Hall of Famer and beloved Mr. Oriole Brooks Robinson had died at the age of 86.
I think a lot of guys played tonight with a heavy heart. It was emotional before the game to hear the news. The time he spent with us last year, especially coming in the clubhouse after he threw the first pitch, it was really motivational, inspirational for our players. He's an icon in this game, icon in this city. There's not many of those, and so we feel terrible for his family. I haven't talked to him for a while this season because he's been in the health he's been in, but I hope he's enjoyed watching us play.
Rebecca Pryor joins us live from Camden Yards as fans remember Brooks, of course. And Rebecca, what I remember is a man larger than life, but a gentleman who exuded the utmost amount of class.
I tell you what, Kai, that's a story we heard from a lot of people today. Right now, we have fans that are coming in for today's home game. Lots of fans here. As you can see, crowds are starting to form outside of the beloved pregame spot, Pickles Pub. But really, fans have been visiting Camden Yards all day long, paying their respects to Brooks Robinson. This is one of 2 statues of Robinson near the ballpark. Right now, you can see people are getting ready to pose for pictures in front of it. You can also see some have been laying flowers at its base. The same goes for the statue inside the stadium. That's where we were this afternoon. Now, as a Hall of Famer, he's obviously one of the greatest players of all time, even leading the Orioles to 2 World Series titles. But from speaking with fans today, much like what Kai had to say, it's clear that his impact on Baltimore stretches far beyond any baseball field. Take a listen to what fans are telling us.
And I'm gonna tell you something, ma'am. I cried. I sat there and cried.
He had a personal touch that you just don't see from superstars.
He was a better character person than he was a ball player, and he was a Hall of Famer.
And that's kind of something that I kept it, to my heart. No matter how good a person is, a plumber, electrician,
attorney, whatever they are, when you're a better man, that's the Brooks way.
A great ball player, but somehow an even better man. That's what people told us time and time again today. We even heard several stories from fans that named their children after Brooks. Coming up tonight at 5, we will share more of those heartwarming stories from the fans that are coming here today to pay tribute, pay their respects, and mourn the loss of a legend. But for now, reporting live, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Breaking news right now, word that Michigan State University is firing its head football coach. We'll tell you why. Breaking news right now. Michigan State University is indeed firing its head football coach, Mel Tucker. This story's been in the news for the past month or so. The school says Tucker failed to present adequate reasons why he should not be fired. This after he allegedly had phone sex with an activist against sexual assault who spoke at the school and had a partnership with Tucker and Michigan State University. Tucker claims the phone sex was consensual and off-duty. The school terminated what is left of his $95 million 10-year contract. Neither Tucker nor his attorney has commented on the termination.
Well, a nice looking afternoon finally around here after highs only at 63 yesterday with all the clouds and the drizzle. Now all that rain is to our south off the coast, and then there's a batch of rain that's out to the west. That's our next weather maker. That's moving at us for tomorrow as well as Friday, even into Saturday perhaps. Right now, beautiful afternoon underway at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. In the background on the Toyota Ishida Harbor Skycam. Of course, we got the game at 6:35, and it looks like all systems go for that right now. 68 winds out of the east at 10 miles an hour. Humidity nice and low, 49%. Even the dew point, the measure of moisture in the air, when that's below 50, it is bone dry. So it's a real fall feel. It's still below average this afternoon. Should be 75, 76. We barely made it to 70. I have to check and see, but last observation I saw closest to 70 was only 69, and now we're at 68, so we're back on the way down. 67 at Cockeysville, temperature low to mid 70s. There you go, out to the west, and I think we have some of those in our forecast, but it's probably going to take till maybe Saturday, maybe even Sunday to really get here. And it's really going to warm up, I think, next week. Temperatures running 5 to 10 degrees warmer with that beautiful sunshine than they were yesterday. Slow moving remnants. Oh, that's right, Ophelia, down to our south. That spinning H that you see there off the coast, that's with dreary weather now over southern Virginia down into the Carolinas. So that's pulled away, at least for the time being. But there is more rain that's out to the west. Beyond that is the means to the end of this pattern. Things are going to get sunnier and a lot warmer, and for quite some time once this all moves out of here. So, Philippe, that's out in the tropics. Taking a little check of the tropics now as we're heading toward almost October. We're starting to downtrend on the season, but nonetheless, that's going to eventually be a tropical depression heading out towards Puerto Rico. We have a high chance of development now that's in the central Atlantic. This one could become a tropical depression, ending up, it appears, somewhere out in the central Atlantic. Something to watch as we've got a few weeks to take a look at that, at least a week or two. So Future Scan says overnight tonight, again for the O's game, some mainly clear skies, but overnight the clouds will increase once again. Tomorrow morning, the clouds thicken. We become cloudy in the afternoon, and there are your showers moving back in tomorrow afternoon. 20% chance there, and on and off showers likely for the day on Friday as our next weather maker moves through. Saturday, leftover shower 73, and there's the warmth back 70s to even 80s into early next week.
Jonathan, thank you. Coming up next, should you invest in pet insurance and which provider is best? Consumer Reports ranks the options and has some advice on whether it's a good idea for your pet or not. Have you been to the vet recently? Well, you know it's not cheap. And if you're like a lot of pet owners, you may have asked yourself, should we get pet insurance? Patrice Sanders reports on why the answer isn't always easy.
When asked if he's a dog or a cat person, Consumer Reports investigative reporter Brian Vines answers both. He's the proud owner of a dog named Logo and a cat named Phoebe, who recently had an injury.
We opened the door and Phoebe came in and she was very timid and stayed low to the ground. And she had a little spot on her hind leg. And we're like, what has happened?
Brian does not have pet insurance, so treating Phoebe would be entirely out of pocket.
Pet insurance was always one of those things in the back of our minds, like, oh, we ought to do that.
But is pet insurance something you should consider? For the first time, Consumer Reports evaluated and rated 8 pet insurance providers based on a survey of its members with insured pets, looking at things such as premiums, what's covered, the claims process, and whether people had a choice in which vets to see.
We found that most people just aren't that satisfied with their pet insurance.
6 of the insurance providers earned just a mid-range overall satisfaction score, and 2 bottomed out with unfavorable ratings. If you're considering pet insurance, there are some things you should know. Pre-existing conditions are typically not covered. There are usually annual caps. If you hit that limit, you'll have to pay out of pocket. You may be responsible for paying the provider directly and then file for reimbursement with the insurance company.
If you're looking for a return on investment, maybe not so much. But if you value peace of mind, pet insurance may be something that you want to pursue.
Another option, telehealth, which is what Brian used.
Got instruction on how to clean the wound and a prescription for antibiotics that was delivered right to our door.
And thankfully, Phoebe healed just fine, using only 1 of her 9 lives. Now, another alternative option may be to bring your pet to an accredited veterinary medical college, which may be able to offer discounts on everything from routine care visits to spaying and neutering. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, Baltimore City Police are offering a reward to find the man who murdered a Baltimore tech CEO. We'll have the latest developments in that search. The manhunt continues for the man accused of murdering a young and promising Baltimore tech CEO. What we're learning about the suspect's troubled past.
Donald Trump continues to skip debates, including tonight's, but still has a huge lead over his Republican contenders. What does it mean, and what do they have to do next? I'm Scott Thuman with a debate preview coming up.
And a live look at Camden Yards tonight. Fans are flocking in as the O's look to clinch their first AL East title in 9 years.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
Baltimore residents are on edge as an armed and dangerous man remains at large. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Kai Jax.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Police are currently searching for 32-year-old Jason Billingsley. He is accused of murdering 26-year-old Pavel LePere.
LePere was found beaten to death in her apartment building on Sunday. She was the founder and CEO of the tech company EcoMap.
And as the manhunt continues, Mayor Scott and Acting Police Commissioner Worley are doubling down on the severity of the situation.
What matters is that we had someone kill another person in a brutal way that we have to get off the streets before it's done again to someone else. That's all that matters today.
This individual will kill and he will rape. He will do anything he can to cause harm. I just have a message for Jason Billingsley. If you're out there watching, hopefully you are, every single police officer in Baltimore City, the state of Maryland, as well as the U.S. Marshals are looking for you. We will find you, so I would ask you to turn yourself in to any officer, any police station, because we will take you into custody eventually, and then we will turn it over to the state's attorney to prosecute you to the fullest.
We have live team coverage covering all angles of this developing story.
And we begin with Alexa Ashwell and new details we are learning about Billingsley and his criminal past as this urgent manhunt goes on today. Alexa?
Yes, Kai, Mary, as the search continues, Baltimore Police and Metro Crime Stoppers now offering this $6,000 reward for information that leads agents to Jason Billingsley. Sources, Baltimore Police also confirming what sources told me earlier, that Billingsley is also linked to an attempted murder, rape, and arson case that happened before LePere's murder, leaving even more questions.
The manhunt for convicted felon Jason Billingsley, accused of murdering Baltimore tech CEO Pavel LePere, intensifying. Overnight, federal, state, and local police scouring several locations, including neighborhoods in greater Baltimore. Agents now broadening their search as sources confirm Billingsley is believed to be connected to other violent and recent crimes and has a total of at least 3 warrants for his arrest: LePere's murder, a gun theft, and a rape arson investigation.
This individual will kill and he will rape.
During yesterday's press conference, Acting Baltimore Police Commissioner Richard Worley was questioned if Billingsley is connected to other cases, specifically an incident on Edmondson Avenue in West Baltimore.
We're still looking into that case, but he is a suspect in at least one other case.
That initial report listed as an arson investigation, but sources confirming more alarming details and Billingsley the believed suspect. According to police, on September 19th, about a week before LePere's murder, officers responded to reports of a house fire here on Edmondson Avenue. Inside, they found a man and a woman with critical injuries. Sources confirmed the woman reported she had been attacked and raped by a man before he cut their throats and set fire to the home. Miraculously, both victims survived. Neighbors say they heard about the reported rape by word of mouth.
People that we know, we would hear them talk about it, or people in the area, we would hear them talk about it. But us personally, we don't know nothing much about it. But I can say that I'm very appalled.
Also appalling to many, including Mayor Brandon Scott, the fact that Billingsley was out on the streets given his criminal past.
There is no way in hell that he should have been on the street.
Newly obtained court documents providing further insight. In 2009, when Billingsley was 18 years old, he was arrested for assaulting and stealing money from a man. The majority of his 5-year sentence was suspended, and Billingsley received 2 years probation. Court records show he violated that probation in 2011 by committing another assault, this one on a former girlfriend. Billingsley was sentenced to 2 years, a judge allowing him to serve this time concurrently, meaning with his sentence for the probation violation. Then in 2013, Billingsley arrested again, this time for a first-degree sex offense. Court records show he forced a woman to perform oral sex after the two met and strangled and threatened her throughout the incident. A judge sentenced Billingsley to 30 years in prison, suspending all but 14 of those years and ordering the felon serve 5 years probation, submit his DNA, and register as a sex offender upon his release. That release happening 5 years early in October 2022. A reported rape and LePaire's murder happening less than a year later.
Now we're asking Baltimore police the following questions. When was the warrant issued for Jason Billingsley's arrest for the attempted murder, rape, and arson? Why wasn't the public notified of this rape before now? And why did BPD opt to not release Billingsley's picture following the reported rape? We're still waiting to hear back. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our live team coverage, looking at the legislative opportunities to address repeat violent offenders. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Kyle, we know that lawmakers have had the opportunity to address this problem. Legislation has been introduced year after year to implement tougher penalties on repeat violent offenders, but that has yet to happen. And now there is a renewed focus on this, given the plea deal and the history of this suspect in this case, and that plea deal that was approved by a Baltimore City judge.
From the outside, the building where 26-year-old Pavel LePaire was killed doesn't look like a crime scene. But inside, that's where Baltimore police say this suspect, Jason Billingsley, brutally killed the tech CEO. Court records show Billingsley pleaded guilty to first-degree sex offense in 2015, sentenced to 30 years with all but 14 suspended. The plea deal, coming from a prosecutor in Marilyn Mosby's administration, signed off by Judge Emanuel Brown.
We are tired of talking about the same people committing the same kind of crimes over and over again.
Mayor Brennan Scott putting the focus back on repeat violent offenders, a topic lawmakers in Annapolis had years to address. The Violent Firearms Offender Act, a priority for former Governor Larry Hogan, passed the Senate a few times, but always dying in the House. And in 2022, we pressed the Senate president if he would bring the plan up for a vote again.
I think before the Senate would take it up again, we'd want to see some movement on the other chamber so that we know that we're not sort of throwing it into the wind.
That didn't happen, and Hogan leaving office without seeing the plan pass.
We had legislation that we thought was critically important, and every single year, all of the city leaders and all of the city legislators killed those bills. That's my biggest frustration of being governor. That we couldn't get that fixed, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. It was for a lack of cooperation.
Another push for Hogan, the Judicial Transparency Act, a report card of sorts for judges, giving the public access to sentences with judges' names, making it easier for the public to track plea deals and sentences. Ultimately, a watered-down version became law, publicizing sentencing data without the names of the judges.
You will get a better sense of what's working and what's not in different parts of the state.
Repeat violent offenders are being, cut sweetheart plea deals by prosecutors.
Zach Smith, the criminal justice policy expert, says the plea deal with Billingsley is an example of the problem.
Is too many politicians have bought into this idea that we have a mass incarceration. Under this very liberal view of what constitutes mass incarceration, you're necessarily going to be releasing repeat violent offenders back into the community with devastating consequences.
He argues lawmakers don't have a choice but to move on legislation targeting repeat violent offenders. We sent several questions to the Baltimore City delegation and House Speaker Adrian Jones, including, was it a mistake not to pass the Violent Firearms Offender Act previously? Will you support similar legislation that would implement tougher penalties for repeat violent offenders? Delegate Young, the only one to respond, telling Fox 45 News in part that he is, quote, open to considering any legislation that enhances public safety. However, it's important to note that simply increasing penalties may not be the sole solution to achieving improved public safety. No one else responded. Meanwhile, the laws remain the same, repeat violent offenders remain a concern, and the General Assembly has yet to address the problem impacting communities across Maryland.
And this isn't the first time that we're seeing lawmakers seemingly ignore some of the concerns from the public. It's happening right now with the juvenile crime crisis, where we continue to hear from prosecutors, parents, and police all across the state beg lawmakers to address the juvenile crime laws. But so far, those laws are staying as they are. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Well, a vigil will take place tonight to remember Pavel LePaire. Keith Daniels is in Mount Vernon, right now, ahead of tonight's gathering. Keith?
Well, Mary, she's been described as a talented, kind, young businesswoman. Mayor Brandon Scott said he got to know her over the years and called her a devoted Baltimorean. And tonight, her friend and loved ones will gather here at the Washington Monument here in Mount Vernon. Some of them coming here now, some flowers and a podium already set up for a vigil in her memory. Now, police found LaPere's body at her apartment building on West Franklin Street near downtown Baltimore late Monday morning with signs of blunt force trauma. Now, the medical examiner's office has not released a cause of death. Police found her body within hours after she was reported missing. Again, the search is on for Jason Billingsley, accused in LaPere's killing. Investigators are releasing few details about the case, including how police identified Billingsley as a suspect. Now, LaPere, again, was the founder and CEO of EcoMap, an online resource for companies to, among other things, find investors. Friends call her death truly disturbing. And again, they're gathering here tonight for that vigil. It is set to begin here at 6:30. We're live now in Mount Vernon. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. There have been cases in Baltimore where bystanders, seemingly innocent people just living out their lives, end up becoming victims of violent crime. Fox 45's Amy Simpson is examining how often these tragedies occur. Amy joins us live. Amy?
Yeah, well, all too often, people who love this city and are just going about their lives find themselves victims of violent crime. November 2021, 69-year-old Evelyn Player murdered inside an East Baltimore church. Her killer, a repeat violent offender. January 2022, 51-year-old Cheryl McCormick shot and killed while delivering food in Northeast Baltimore. That same month, a Little Italy restaurant manager, Chesley Patterson, gunned down in Fells Point. Then April 2023, 23-year-old Fabian Gonzalez shot and killed after an armed robbery at Canton's T-Mobile store. And this week, 26-year-old Pavel Lapere, a young CEO named to Forbes 30 Under 30, found dead at her apartment building in the city's Bromo Arts District. All 5 victims likely strangers to one another, yet linked in tragedy. All of them seemingly innocent, random victims of violent crime in Baltimore.
I want people to ponder, when are you going to get tired of this? When are you going to get tired of this?
Sergeant Betsy Smith is the spokeswoman for the National Police Association.
This young woman was murdered by a man who should have been in prison, and now he's on the run.
Smith drawing parallels between violence in Baltimore and her hometown of Chicago.
Say 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, there were certain neighborhoods that people would avoid because that's where most of the crime was. Now it's everywhere. It's affecting everyone. And people are paying attention.
This week's brutal and brazen homicide of a young female entrepreneur, thrusting Baltimore into the national headlines.
It's a city that I always love to visit. It's historic, it's picturesque. But now nationally, what are people hearing about Baltimore, Maryland? That it's a violent city that cannot seem to get a handle on its murder problem, on its violent crime problem.
Smith questioning why Pavel Lapere's suspected killer, 32-year-old Jason Billingsley, was ever released from custody.
Our politicians talk a lot about women's health and women's safety. And this man was a convicted sex offender who was allowed to roam free to further victimize innocent women. We have got to stop letting that happen.
And speaking with Sergeant Smith today, she pointed to another example of a seemingly unprovoked killing here in Baltimore City. It was December 2021 when a Baltimore police officer, Kiana Holly, was shot in an ambush-style attack on her patrol car in Curtis Bay. Officer Holly died a week later. We're live in Baltimore. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
He was a legend, he was a hero, he was an idol.
Community remembers the legacy of a Baltimore legend, how fans are honoring Brooks Robinson.
And if you'll be headed out to the Orioles game this evening, looks like some weather to celebrate. Temperature is going to be in the 60s. Good deal of sunshine, dry skies. I'm going to let you know how long it lasts when rain moves back in, and it could be pretty soon. It's my Weather Authority forecast.
It is debate day for Republicans in the race for the White House. And again, there will be a pretty noticeable absence. Donald Trump has decided not to take part again.
Why and what does that mean for Republicans hoping to become the party's nominee?
Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thubin joining us live to break it all down. And Scott, what are you going to be watching for in tonight's debate?
Moments where Republicans, while they're having a bit of a feeding frenzy and they want to escalate their own chances here competing against each other on the stage, it is an opportunity to show a little bit of cohesion, some coalescing. And the reason I say that is because a big subject tonight is the economy. And instead of tearing at each other, I think they'll focus a lot of attention on what they call Bidenomics, the economy under this current president, and how they say you're not better off now than you were 4 years ago, and therefore you have to make a change. You have to vote Republican. I think they will find a lot of consensus in that argument, and so there could be some kind of rare moments of unity, at least in the messaging.
Scott, any evidence whether voters will tolerate at least Republicans, because we're talking about the nomination, this no debate strategy for Trump?
Well, Kai, it's working for him, is the bottom line. I mean, you look at the poll numbers, he's up in those early states of Iowa and New Hampshire. He's up 30 and 37 points respectively over the next closest contender, and that's Governor Ron DeSantis. So as long as he can continue to watch his numbers trend in the right direction, there's no incentive for him to start doing these debates. Plus, he can always look at what's going on across the aisle and say, how about President Biden? He's not debating RFK Jr. or Marianne Williamson. He's staying out of the fray. Why do I need to jump in? And as long as he continues to do well, I think that there's a reason for him to stay out of these debates.
And we talked during the last debate about the chance for somebody else to step it up. It was supposed to be Ron DeSantis. It really wasn't. It was sort of Vivek Ramaswamy, a few others. It seems we're still waiting for that candidate to appear.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee somebody will, Mary. I mean, there's a very good chance you could go through this debate and have the same kind of analysis that we always start to witness, where somebody will look for a breakout moment or some sort of viral comment by somebody on stage. They come in fits and starts, but it doesn't mean that somebody's going to emerge with staying power and suddenly they'll be the clear number two and then, biting at Trump's heels. So high expectations may not be met, but there is an opportunity, there always is, for someone to prove their worth or to inspire where others have fallen flat. And Nikki Haley got a little bit of a bump in Milwaukee. We saw that with her fundraising as well. Vivek Ramaswamy, who you mentioned, also suddenly emerged as someone who is worthy of more attention, and that also comes with scrutiny. That may happen again, but again, until somebody can really chip away at Trump's numbers, it's hard to see someone coming out of this debate a huge winner. A little bit, sure. Huge, I don't know yet.
Yeah, with all those voices speaking there tonight. All right, Scott Thuman live in D.C. for us. Thank you.
You got it.
Well, things have been revolving around the remnants of Ophelia, but that has changed, at least for this afternoon. We sit with a dry, pleasant evening. Clouds, though, yep, they'll be back overnight. The next weather maker, it's already on the way. We're tracking it. And then over the weekend, some huge improvements, especially by Sunday, if you like warm and sunny weather. HD radar, anything but sunny out to our west. This is our next weather maker, Charleston, all the way to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And notice this is drifting eastbound. So clouds overnight, those increase, and then maybe some shower chance arrive as early as tomorrow. But enjoy it while we got it. Toyota East Harbor Skycam Battle of the Beltways continues tonight. Behind me here at Camden Yards, going to be a great evening for it. The sun has decided to make an appearance and will stay on into game time. Right now, 68, winds out of the east at 10. Humidity at 53%, and our dew point, that's a measure of moisture in the air, not damp anymore, nice and dry, right around 50 degrees. Temperature 68, Baltimore 67, up at Cockeysville 66, Annapolis. Look at those 70s out to the northwest. Temperatures running with that sun up to about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than they were just yesterday, 24 hours ago. Leftover remnants of Ophelia drifting southbound away from us, at least for today. But there's the next weather maker already lined up behind it, though. Things going to get real nice, but you're going to have to wait a couple of days. Philippe out in the tropics. That is a tropical storm. Eventually, that is going to head off toward Puerto Rico and diminish. And there's also a high chance of development now in the central portion of the Atlantic. And look at that. It looks like that could end up in the open Atlantic, and have to watch exactly where that'll eventually go. Computer models kind of all over the place as we head toward 5 to 10 days out. So future scan overnight, it looks like we've got the mainly clear skies this evening. Those go to increasing clouds overnight, and there is that risk of a stray shower by tomorrow afternoon as highs cool down into the 60s. I think a better chance of some showers here on Friday, 68. Still leftover shower Saturday, warming to 71, and there you go. Look at those 80s. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and next week. A real taste of summer is back.
Jonathan, thank you. Still ahead tonight, almost 3 months since Baltimore's largest mass shooting. We break down the communication failures between 3 major city agencies. Fox 45 News tries to get answers from Baltimore City schools after a recent investigation finds 13 city high schools where 0 students who took the state math test scored proficient. That investigation went viral, making national headlines. But when our Project Baltimore team went to the city school board meeting last night, the school system made it very clear they did not want to talk, refusing to allow our cameras to record outside the meeting.
The way you can run the camera is inside the boardroom. Or outside. Or inside.
I mean, is this a new rule? It is not. It's not a new, it's just never been, I guess it's never been enforced.
Well, Project Baltimore obtained the unredacted state test scores from this past spring. At 13 city high schools, more than 1,700 students took the state math test and 0 scored proficient. At the top 5 performing high schools in Baltimore City, just 11% of students who took the test scored proficient in math. And during the board meeting, City School CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises defended the school system, saying some of the students at the top 5 city high schools were not included in the results because they took the test before high school.
Despite what some media outlets would have you believe, we are making progress. In fact, many of the students at the 5 high schools referenced in a recent news story, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, Baltimore School for the Arts, Baltimore City College, Western High School, and Bard High School Early College Baltimore, had already passed the Algebra MCAT test before entering those schools.
Well, Dr. Santelises did not explain how many students took the test before entering those schools, and that's not the only question she left unanswered. Coming up tonight at 10, the drastic steps Project Baltimore took during last night's meeting to get answers for the public.
It was a great loss, and I'll miss them. I really will.
Coming up after the break, honoring a Baltimore legend. Orioles fans speaking on their love for the late Brooks Robinson.
Breaking information into our newsroom. Our big story tonight as the urgent search goes on for the man police say killed the young CEO of a Baltimore tech company.
Just moments ago, the family of Pava LaPere released a lengthy statement remembering her. It says, in part, "We have lost a deeply loved daughter, sister, and friend who could understand all of us in a way that no other human being could." The statement goes on to say, "We remain in complete shock and can barely comprehend Pava's death. It will be in life's quiet moments after the dust settles that the full reality of this tragedy will resonate." And you can find the full statement on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
I know you said we're guests of honor. This is no honor. Knowing that Foxtrot will tell you as they look down from hundreds of feet in the air that everything looks normal. What's your normal? I challenge you, what is your normal? Let them take each other out. Is that your normal?
That was the emotional testimony from the mother of Aaliyah Gonzalez, one of two young people killed in the Brooklyn Day mass shooting in July.
Those words cut the public safety hearing on the shooting short 2 weeks ago as many were brought to tears.
Now, that hearing reconvened today for council members to talk with police, Monzi, and the Housing Authority about what went wrong that day.
That's right. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker was there, joins us live with the very latest on this story. Maxine?
Mary, this was the second time that police were questioned since the release of that after-action report, which detailed officer indifference and many failures from the day of that shooting. Acting Police Commissioner Richard Worley, speaking today, was asked why police ignored a number of calls about guns and knives on site that night, and why they didn't respond. To put it simply, he said, "We should have," and said the excuse that we didn't know about Brooklyn Day was not an excuse, pointing out they did know with enough time but still failed to act even when they knew how large the crowd had become.
There's a protocol that should have been followed when, first of all, we know how large Brooklyn Day gets. So that becomes a large party. And we could have done the same thing this time had we done it quicker and earlier in the day and had officers move there. We can respond and mediate or stop certain things. We stop parties, pop-up events every single weekend, every single day almost during the summer, before and post-pandemic, and during. But sometimes you got to rely on supervisors to escalate it up to the duty officer. We had all the correct supervisory levels in place, they just weren't followed that day.
I need for you all to really understand that if you all have policies in place, they need to be followed. This is not an aspect of just having officer indifference. This is a clear aspect of not following the rules, and lives are being lost.
Well, Worley promising new written guidance and policies in place for future large gatherings. Guys?
Maxine, we understand the Housing Authority was also questioned today. Did that yield anything new?
Well, a lot of new questions for them today because they're also accused of dropping the ball on the Brooklyn Day mass shooting, claiming that they did not know the event was happening either and not responding until 3 a.m. that morning. They say they most of the time heavily rely on residents to let them know when events are happening and then make sure that they're following their protocols. When asked how they could have responded differently had they known ahead of time that night, they said they would have moved armed security from some of their other sites to the Brooklyn Day community that night. Reporting live in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
I want to see them clinch tonight, and I'm going to be hopefully right behind the Orioles dugout like I was last time.
And rooting like hell for the Birds.
How do you feel about how the Birds been doing this season?
Yeah!
That's right, right? The Orioles' magic number to clinch the AL East is now down to 2, and fans could not be more excited.
Tonight they take on the Washington Nationals for a second time after beating the team 1-0 last night.
They only have 5 games left. 1 game will be against the Nats, and the 4 others will be against the Red Sox. All of them will be played right here in Baltimore.
And that excitement comes as fans also remember the legacy of an Orioles legend, Brooks Robinson. Robinson passed away last night at the age of 86.
And we have team coverage tonight covering everything O's.
And we want to start with Morgan Adsit live right now with highlights heading into tonight's big game. And Morgan, it seems like those O's are playing with the spirit of Brooks supporting them, right?
Yeah, guys, I mean, it's very simple tonight for the Orioles in Birdland. First and foremost, it's clinch watch, right? They want to get this win. They want the Rays to lose. They want to lock up that AL East title for the first time in 9 years. But I have to show you what's going on behind me. Gates opened 30 minutes ago, and fans have been pouring in. We're out here behind the outfield in Legends Park where the Hall of Fame statues are, and everyone is paying their respects to the late, great Brooks Robinson, who passed away yesterday at the age of 86. They're celebrating the incredible life he lived on and off the field. And at the warehouse, they have a number of tributes going on besides this one. Number 5 is hanging up at the warehouse. On this Hall of Fame retired number, they have a black ribbon. And these current birds got to see all of this for the first time during batting practice today. And while we know the Orioles have a postseason spot already clinched, their eyes are on a bigger prize in the East, that title and top American League seed.
Being able to control your own destiny is that's what everybody wants as a baseball player, for you to be in control of what's going to play out during the season. So we've put ourselves in a good situation, and I think we're in control of our own destiny tonight.
Here's what needs to happen. It's very simple for that second clubhouse party: popping bottles, spraying booze, and turning the Homer hose into a beer bong. The Orioles need a win tonight over the Nationals, and the O's need the Rays to lose at Boston. We can know if tonight's the night by 9:30. But guys, I mean, I know once first pitch comes here just after 6:30, that's going to mean a lot to this fan base and to the Orioles. But right now, you can't help but take in what is happening here in Legends Park. The gates opened about 30 minutes ago. Fans have been pouring in. It is a quiet but pleasant scene. I had a gentleman not want to be on camera, but he told me some stories and was moved to tears. And everyone's kind of just being nice, paying their respects, lining up, and being patient and coming here to honor Mr. Oriole. And we will have much more on Brooks Robinson and what the Orioles plan to do for him this season coming up a little later during Sports Unlimited. Reporting live at Camden Yards, I'm Morgan Adsit.
Morgan, thank you. As Baltimore and Maryland and the nation in Major League Baseball mourn the loss of an Orioles legend, Brooks Robinson is being remembered by a lot of people today. The legendary third baseman, again, as we said, died yesterday at the age of 86. He played for the Orioles for more than 2 decades, winning 2 World Series in 1966 and 1970. In fact, fans have been gathering at his statue at Camden Yards all day, as Morgan just showed us. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor is live right now with how the Hall of Famer impacted so many people. Rebecca.
Yeah, Kai, we already know that he won plenty of ball games, but it was his kind heart that truly won over fans here in Baltimore. The people that we spoke with today telling us Robinson leaves behind an honorable legacy both on and off the field. The usually closed gates outside Camden Yards wide open this week, welcoming fans coming to mourn the loss.
He was a hero. He was an idol.
The best third baseman ever to play the game.
Of a legend.
It hurts.
It hit me like somebody punched me in the chest.
My heart just dropped.
I closed my business down. I put a note on the door. Sorry, I had to go say goodbye to Brooks.
At the base of Brooks Robinson's statue, a stack of flowers continues to grow.
Thanks, Brooks.
As dozens come to pay their respects to, arguably,
A lot of people name their son Brooks. Yeah, for good reason.
Baltimore's most beloved baseball player.
Brooks Robinson meant so much, and still does, to this whole town.
And when you ask why that is and what brings so many here today, hardly anyone is rattling off stats.
He made you feel like he was one of you.
He was always kind.
He was genuine as they make people.
To many outside the city, he's a Hall of Famer, winning 16 consecutive Gold Gloves, leading the O's to 4 American League pennants and 2 World Series titles. But here in Baltimore,
Tremendous person.
Everybody was his friend. When you met him, you were his friend.
His impact stretches far beyond the game of baseball.
He had a personal touch that you just don't see from superstars.
As a junior Oriole in the 70s, Neil Kopisak says he won a brief meet and greet with Robinson.
And remember, he sees people all the time.
But when they met again a few days later,
I sheepishly went, "Hi, Brooks." And you know, he said, "Hello, Neil." And I melted, and I had to pick my friend's jaw off the ground and put it back up.
No score kept on a board could ever count the personal connections Robinson made in this community.
He was that kind of guy. He remembered you.
And in the end, that's how we remember him.
We'll never forget him. Ever forget him.
Brooks Robinson. He played in a league full of outstanding athletes, but it's the person he was off the field, placing him in a league of his own.
No matter how good a person is, a plumber, electrician, attorney, whatever they are, when you're a better man, that's the Brooks way.
I'll miss him. I really will.